Great. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. It's my honor to introduce you to my friend and colleague, and what might be interesting to many of you, former student, Dr. Jason Galea, also Jay to his friends, although I wasn't allowed to call him Jay when he was a student. For unknown reasons, I wasn't close enough to him. Dr. Galea is a consultant to NCAA athletic teams. He is a consultant to US Olympic coaches and various professional teams. He is more known here in San Diego as the director of the San Diego Saints hockey youth program, and is a member of US Hockey's certified instructor group, I think is probably the best way to say that. Mm-hmm. He is also a former high caliber youth athlete. You probably have heard in his accent that he is Canadian. And so his sport of choice was ice hockey. And to be a high level youth hockey player in Canada means a little bit more than it does here. He also, I think, even did a little semi-pro hockey and was at that level. And then, like myself, like Dr. Glasgow that's on the call here, we found our calling in helping others and not our professional athletic pursuits. And now we get to help younger students, athletes, collegiate athletes, youth folks, professionals, coaches, teams, organizations. I know Dr. Galea has worked with X Games athletes, so the whole gamut of folks. And now I would just like to see if I can embarrass him a little bit. I want to tell you, I have worked with a number of elite youth hockey players in San Diego. Because of the confidentiality agreements, I was never allowed to tell Jay who they were. And to this day, he doesn't know who they were. But I got to hear about him from numerous families over the last decade. And he is looked upon as, you know, the name of the team or the Saints, but he's looked upon as a saint because families love him and adore him and are so thankful to have him as a member of the team of people in their children's lives. So just to give you a little example of that, if I can find it. Looks like I can't find it. I even had it queued up.
Thank goodness.
I'll find it. Give me one moment. There we go. You know what this is?
Oh my God. Oh, this is horrible. This is like a bad episode of This Is Your Life.
That's the goal of Crocs Center Ice.
And 10 News reporter Brian Schlonsky met the man leading the way, helping hundreds of kids over the past 15 years.
Could you turn it up a wee bit?
Center, slap shots, skating. This is San Diego Saints hockey. A program that helps underprivileged kids not only learn the sport, but stay off the streets. The man leading the charge, a volunteer, although that's probably not the best word to describe Dr. Jason Galea. After all, volunteering is something you do in your spare time. Galea's been doing this for 15 years, taking off maybe 5 days a year.
He has just blessed our family so much.
Tracy Wilkes' kids, 2 of the several hundred who Galea has helped over the years.
There's been times where we haven't been able to afford new skates, and Jason's made it happen.
From helping kids afford expensive gear to just being there for them, like the time Wilkes' daughter was ready for her first job. Galea met with her to do a mock interview.
And that doesn't even have anything to do with hockey, right? I mean, that just has to do with a kid growing up.
You haven't heard from Galea yet because he doesn't know we're here. We're hiding in a back room, ready to surprise him with the 10 News Leadership Award.
We've been back here in the equipment room for about 15 minutes. We're hanging with the Zamboni, some people who are really excited to surprise him. We're about to go through this door. Follow us. Here we go. And remember, he doesn't know we're coming. We're heading towards the player's box to meet him. Brian Schlonsky with 10 News. How are you, Brian Schlonsky? We are here to surprise you because you have been nominated for the 10 News Leadership Award because of everything you do for these kids in this community.
Are you kidding me?
Within seconds of meeting him,
Oh my God!
you know he deserves it.
You've taken my words away, so thank you so much.
The man who's helped mold hundreds of young lives won't take the credit. He says they're the ones shaping his.
I just think of myself as someone who day in, day out just tries to do the better thing.
Dr. Galea, on behalf of Lead San Diego and 10 News, we want to present you with the 10 News Leadership Award.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Brian Schlonsky, 10 News.
There, how fun was that?
Man, the internet is the devil. Let me tell you.
Oh,
Wow, that's awesome.
I'm
Wow.
gonna have to go. There we
For
go.
that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. I don't think I've ever won anything, so awards like that are really fabulous. So what I wanted to invite Jay here to talk to you all about today is sort of his progression to being a sports psychologist and a coach, his passion for athletics and youth. And he has a business that is something that would interest a lot of you, a way to integrate your passion for sports psychology, your skill as a therapist, some coaching, and really giving back. And so, Jay, would you like me to invite you to share, or do you want to chat first?
Sure. Let's maybe we'll chat a little bit, and then I'll throw the deck up there. First of all, I just want to thank you, Ron, for the opportunity to speak with your group. Doing this stuff is always fun, and I will tell you all something you probably already know. Ron's the best, and I'll tell you a little story of how there's numerous people in my life that know about Ron, but have never met Ron simply because Ron saved my life. I'll tell you a little story about this man who came into my life. You guys are so lucky to have such an incredible instructor, because having a quality person like this in your life is not only a future colleague, but as a friend, is someone that's going to help you in the long run. Ron was part of my dissertation committee. And I can tell you a scary story where just seconds before I was about to do my final defense, there were some people on my committee members who said, well, maybe we should stall this a little bit and come back again because we have other questions and we're not too sure if everything's the way it should be. And Ron was my white knight. He stepped up in front of everyone and said, no, we've gone through this guy's work for over a year now. He's got everything in line. I've looked it over and we're doing this today. And if I ever have a kid, boy or girl, it's going to be named Ron, just so we know. Let me tell you how I got into this. My story is a really weird one of how I even learned about sports psychology 1,000 years ago. And it kind of goes like this. I was able, very fortunately, to play collegiate sports. And as Ron hinted to, I was a hockey player. And I was fortunate enough to have hockey help me attain my education. And without sports, I don't know where I'd be today, to be quite honest with you. And in my very first game as a freshman, as a rookie, as you would refer to us, I remember being in the hallway, getting ready to play our big game. A lot of pressure, going to be on TV. Our team that season was one where, if any of you have played collegiate sports, no sports, we had a team of 26 players, and 14 of the players were freshmen. And that's unheard of in collegiate Division I sports. So 14 freshmen, scared out of our wits, a lot of pressure put on us at a very young age. The program was almost in a rehaul mode, and they were trying to swoon back a lot of sponsorship and boosters and whatnot. And our leadership made that very clear to us. So we're basically getting ready to play the first game of the season. We're going to be on TV, the whole 9 yards. I'm in the hallway getting ready about an hour and a half, 2 hours before the game with the superstar of our team. And this guy's a little bit older than me. And all of a sudden down the hallway comes this guy from the other team. Now, in the game of hockey, it's pretty normal to kind of fraternize and talk with guys from the other team. And as you get to the, closer to the top, it becomes a little small world and everyone kind of knows everyone. So this guy walks right up to the superstar and he goes, "Oh my God, I'm just amazed that I'm getting the chance to play against you. Like, this is something I never thought would happen. And I'm just freaking out. And my parents are so excited and blah, blah, blah." And all of a sudden the superstar looks at me and he looks at this guy and he says, "Dude, who are you?" And all of a sudden the guy's face goes all red. And he says, "Well, I don't know if you remember me, but my older brother used to play with you. And I used to hang around the locker room all the time. And I would run around and ask you if you needed anything to drink, if you needed a towel. And I was that kind of pain. And yeah, that was me." And he looked at me and goes, "Yeah, I kind of remember you. What's your brother's name again?" So he tells him his brother's name. And all of a sudden, my teammate starts laughing and goes, "Oh my God, I remember your brother. He was horrible. He never played. He was brutal." And all of a sudden, I just sat there. I'm like, "Oh my God." And the guy can just put his head down, look back up, and his face was just beet red. And I thought, this is not going to go well. And all of a sudden, he turned around and he said, "It's obvious that you don't watch ESPN or follow the hockey news, because if you had, you'd know that my brother is playing in the National Hockey League for the Dallas Stars. And just recently, he signed a $2 million contract. We'll see you." And walks away. So, wow, that was a slap in the head, right? Well, the game starts, and I'm lucky enough to get the opportunity to play on this day. And maybe about, I don't know, halfway through the first period, I realized that the superstar hasn't touched the ice. Well, the period ends, I go to the locker room and I'm sitting down in my stall, and I look over to talk to one of my teammates and I say, "So where's," and all of a sudden a senior guy comes over and he says, "Hey, rookie, shut up and stay focused." Okay. Second period starts, ends. There's no sight of the superstar. Third period is about to begin. No sign of the superstar. Game ends. We're lucky enough to win. We're all caught up in this momentous occasion because of the fact that we should not have won this game. And during the celebration and all, I kind of look from the corner of my eye and I can see the superstar's equipment all packed up. So now we go for dinner. It's the topic that everyone doesn't want to talk about, but wants to talk about. Where is he? And we get through dinner and we all go back to our hotels. And while we're in the hotel, guys are calling each other, because this is about 15, 20 years ago. There were no cell phones at that time. And roughly 4 o'clock in the morning, we get a phone call, all of us in our rooms, and we're summoned to the foyer of the hotel. We get down there, there's 3 police cruisers in front, and there's another 3 in the back. There's 6 police cars in total waiting for us. And they take the 25 of us and they divide us up into little pods to go out and find him. And roughly 2.5 hours later, we get brought back to the hotel and he had been found. And basically what had happened is he had a major anxiety attack, which could have more or less turned into a panic attack, and found himself consuming alcohol to the point where he was confused as to what hotel we were staying in. The very following day, we were to get on a bus and head back to the next school that we're going to play. And at the back of the bus was this odd looking guy who obviously didn't belong on a hockey bus. And he sat down and said, "Do you mind if I talk to you guys?" This guy went on to become our sports psychologist for 3 years, 3 seasons in a row. And during that time, he helped us with 3 major tragedies on our team. 3 players on our team lost a family member, and in dramatic way. And I'm one of them. I lost an older brother just before my junior year of training camp for the season. And without this guy's help, I don't know if I would have been able to even finish what little career I had. I definitely would not have finished school. And who knows, once again, where I would be today if it wasn't for sports and having a team with a program that was able to support me in that way, on and off the ice. And near the end of my time with this guy, we would ask him, and we would joke with him and say, like, do you get paid to talk to us? Like, do you get paid to hang out with us? Like, how does this work? Like, how do they pay you? Like, do they pay you by the game? Do they pay you by, like, if we win or lose? Like, I'm not playing that well, so you're probably going to take a cut next year, you know? Like, so all these weird things came up, and nobody really knew what to term, you know, sports psychology. Nobody really knew how to embrace that role. We all knew the importance of it in some way, shape, or form, but we didn't really know if you could talk about it, if you should talk about it. And still in many sports today, as many of you know or will find out, there's not a lot of people who want to talk about it. They all will acknowledge that they need it. It's important. It's the most important part of the game, the team, whatever it may be. But there's still a lot of old school people who they're very uncomfortable talking about the mental side of the game. So fortunately, one of my teammates and I were able to find a program here in San Diego, and we both decided that we're going to follow through and pursue this real deep interest in sports psychology. And deep down, I always knew that I wanted to work with people. Like, I knew I wanted to work with people and I wanted to help people. And coming from an Italian background, I had a mother who kept saying, you're going to be the doctor, right? I've told everyone you're going to be the doctor. So the problem was, upon graduating with my doctorate, I had to explain to my mother, I don't really wear a white jacket. And in return, she kept thinking, you know, like, I'm going to get you the white jacket. I want to buy you the white jacket. And we're going to put your name and doctor and whatever. I'm like, no, Ma, it doesn't really work that way. She's like, what? But I've told everybody. I'm like, well, if I'm wearing a white jacket, I'm probably going to be looking something like that instead. And it took her a while to be able to explain to her family and friends that her son's a PhD, but he doesn't get to wear a white jacket. And with all of this, I really knew that people around me were going to kind of look at me in an odd way, saying, well, how is it that you work with teams? And how is it that you work with teams? And we know you work with teams, but you can't tell us. So even the journey of starting to pursue what I wanted to pursue has been a journey, if that makes sense. Well, what ends up happening is my teammate in college, who was actually my goalie partner, he attained his PhD as well. He's back in Toronto. And the two of us graduate and we start our careers. And we're working in psychological practices. We're working in consulting practices. My colleague, Peter, went on to a really unique career path for many years. He worked for one of the largest psychological assessment companies in North America, where he got to literally travel the entire world, explain to programs at the athletic level, businesses, consultancy firms, the value of certain psychological assessments. And one of the biggest ones that he focused on revolved around emotional intelligence and leadership. So for many years, he was involved in being a part of assessment building and being a part of consultancy work, but also data. Well, while he was doing that, my career path for a little while took a different turn. I was doing some therapy work. I was starting consultancy work. I started to get to a point where I'm talking to more teams, I'm talking to more coaches. And next thing you know, certain people in my life, from my hockey program, are starting to grow and they needed some assistance, or their teams needed assistance. And all of a sudden, more data started coming to me. And then all of a sudden I got an opportunity to work in the clinical trials world. And I was working for little companies like Eli Lilly and GSK. And I'm surrounded by data. Right? And I never saw myself in this world of data. Like I'm not a numbers guy. And oddly enough, I never liked looking at numbers as an athlete because my numbers were never that good. So as time went on, we started talking, Peter and I, how are things going in Toronto and how are things going in San Diego? And tell me how things are going with your private practice. And we found that we had a mutual frustration. And the frustration was you land patients or clients, you start working with them as a sports psychology consultant, teams, and then this horrible thing happened. And the horrible thing is they got better and they started achieving their goals. And like a lot of athletes, they say, okay, doc, that was awesome. See ya. And they're gone, which is what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to take in, help, and release. That's our job. But what happened is these athletes would come back 6 months later and maybe 5 months later, a year later. And for some of them, they wanted to maintain consistency of the work we were doing, but they either couldn't do it because of their schedule, constantly traveling, or they couldn't do it because of the financial end of things. It just became a little too much for them. So what happened is when they would come back to revisit and say, hey, I want to talk with you and pick up where we were, the first couple of episodes of us being back together were a little bit frustrating for the athletes because we're trying to get caught up. Where have you been? What's going on with your life? What's going on with the team? What's happened here? What's happened there? Because all these things work together to make the athlete be the person they are and the athlete that they are and want to be. So over time, when we were sharing this back and forth, the frustration for us started to build. And that's when we basically had looked at each other and said, hey, listen, you're doing data, I'm doing data. We're tracking things for other people in completely different ways. What if there was something there to track how these athletes are doing mentally and emotionally throughout the season? And my colleague looked at me and he goes, what are you talking about? And I said, well, a lot of the assessments that you pitch, whether it's the DISCs, the EQI, or whatever else that you're doing for leadership assessment, you do your assessment and boom, this is what you are. So, if you've ever done the DISC, you're either, I believe it's red, yellow, blue, green, right? Are your personality traits, right? So you're blue today. Well, you do it again in a couple of days, you're feeling good, you think you may have won the lottery, guess what? You might be a different color. Well, our thought was, what if you could be tracking a person throughout the ups and downs of their season? You're a person who you think you're going to be a starter on the team, and all of a sudden you're told you'll be sitting on the bench, or vice versa. You find comfort being on the bench. It allows you to relax and kind of get in the game, and you just want to be part of the team. Well, all of a sudden an injury happens, and now you're starting, and the athlete you thought you were going to be is completely from the athlete you need to be. How is that going to change you? And how are you going to be shape-shifting to what's going to be required of you? So the more that we did research into this area, we realized there's nothing out there like this. And there's nothing that tracks an athlete's data on 5 different categories. And I'll share with you what those categories are. And we kind of said to ourselves, there's a secret sauce here that we work with athletes, and we would share. This is what I do, what you do. And we had all these little tools that we came up with, like little things that I would have my people do and little things he'd have his people do, homework assignments. And we turn those homework assignments into something we call a wow. And that wow is what we refer to as a workout of the week. So what we were able to put together, my partner, Peter Papadopoulos and I, is a little program called Headset Sports. And Headset Sports is a program that I'm going to share with you guys right now. It's something that we've been working on for a few years now, and slowly our little bird is starting to fly. And I'll share with you just a little bit about our deck here. And feel free, if any of you have questions or that, let's talk, because I love to share with you guys what little I have in my brain and what we've accomplished as a program. All right.
Jay, you're now a co-host and can share your screen.
Okay, so can you guys all see this right now?
No.
Great, so much for being ready. All right, let's see how I get out of this. Okay, can you see, actually, So how do I do this? Yeah.
You can just read it to us too if you want.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah,
I hope you
Yeah.
can. See if I can hit share here and see if this will work.
you got it.
I don't know why this is happening. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, sorry. So we thought, wouldn't it be great if we created a program that could assess an athlete as to where they are today? And what we decided we would do is we would assess athletes monthly, and each week we give them an assignment. So what does that look like? How does that all come together? Well, what we decided that we wanted to find a way to empower the athlete. So rather than saying to the athlete, you know, you need to come in and we debrief everything that's going on in your life and just give you strategy, we wanted to give them strategy and tools so they could feel that they could empower themselves. A lot of times the athletes that we've been working with would be relying on someone else to pick them up. They'd be relying on someone else to say, you need to go see someone. They'd be relying on someone else to help them pull up their bootstraps. And the thought was, you know, a lot of athletes are independent. They want to take charge of their game. They want to take charge of themselves and what they can provide their team. So why not do this on the mental and emotional side? So that was the vision for Headset Sports. So really, what are we? Well, what we've created is a program that can not only develop and help strengthen mental toughness, as you would refer to it as, but we also want to have something that gave feedback consistently back and forth between the athlete and the program working with the athlete. So part of our program requires that the athlete give us less than 2 or 3 seconds a diagnosis of how they played over the weekend. So like literally, how did you play on Saturday? Tell us how you felt. Tell us how you did. So the athlete has control to actually give us feedback to tell us how they're performing. And then those results help create the next part of the recipe they receive. So our thought is something that a lot of sports are now focusing upon, and that's long-term athletic development. So what you saw in that horrible video of me earlier, once again, thanks, Ron. As I was going through graduate school and working with Ron, I decided that I didn't have enough stress in my life, and that maybe what I should do would be to start a youth ice hockey program. And let's do it in probably one of the most poverty-stricken areas in San Diego. Awesome. So for the last 20 years, I've been saying this is going to be the last year I'm doing this. I was able to create a little program called the San Diego Saints. And now our little program over the past 18 years has grown to the point where we're in 3 different facilities. And we actually have some kids in our program that have not only gone on to get Division I scholarships. We have some that are playing in the National Hockey League. And then there's a young man from Poway, California, who was in my life from the age of him being 7 to approximately 14. And a few years ago, this young man won the Stanley Cup with the Pittsburgh Penguins. During this time, not only was I working to develop a program, get kids from the ages of 5 to 19 playing, 20 some odd teams, boys and girls, whatnot, it became a requirement that our staff had to constantly be certified so they can go coach. And somehow or another, to add more onto my plate, this little group called USA Hockey called me and said, hey, would you be interested in taking over Southern California area to help certify coaches and help us develop a curriculum that can help with the development of what coaches need with the children that they're working with today of all different ages. And a few years ago, one of the things that became a paramount point for them is the realization of we need to focus on long-term athletic development. It's not who the athlete is today, it's who the athlete can be tomorrow, and so on. And now in a lot of Division I sports, we're starting to realize the rewards of that mentality because for some athletes, their bodies and their skill sets develop later in their teens, maybe early 20s. Especially in my sport of hockey, the difference between the Canadian model and the American model is at the age of 20 in Canada, you could be seen as washed up. If you're not signed to an NHL professional contract, or you have a full ride scholarship of some sort, you're washed up. Where in the American model, the players who are going to Division I or Division III colleges, they can actually prolong their career, prolong their athletic development, and now they're seen as hot commodities at the ages of 23 and 24. So we're talking about long-term development that can help an athlete both physically and mentally. So what we wanted to do, oddly enough, this is one young man that used to play for me years ago. And he's been a paramount in my life, this young man, with the challenges that he's had to overcome, being a young kid of color from Chula Vista, now going on getting a Division I scholarship, and just recently this young man, because of hockey, attained his MBA. So we talk about long-term development of a person as well. Well, in our idea of creating long-term development for this athlete, we wanted to create a program that looks at 5 different categories. We wanted to look at the confidence of the athlete, their level of confidence, the level of motivation to compete. We also want to look at their mental and emotional side of awareness and regulation, and something called resiliency. Now, we get questioned a lot about emotional awareness and regulation, and this is how I explain it to a lot of coaches and athletes. Are you aware as an athlete that your blood is boiling? Are you aware that you're about to lose it right now and potentially go offside, potentially cause a penalty for your team, a foul? And now, not only are you aware of it, do you have the skill sets to regulate those emotions? We don't want to completely dampen them, because sometimes that rage from within can be something that can propel us to greatness, but we sure as heck don't want this to get away from us and become a wildfire that causes us to lose control, lose focus, and now our team suffers from it. So those 5 areas are our pillars that we look at. They're the main ingredients of our secret sauce and what we provide athletes and teams. But from there, we said, okay, now what we need to do is create something that's custom fit for every athlete. So in our program, if you have a locker room of 26 players, each of those people, each of those athletes are getting their own separate customized program for what they need at that time. Over time, what will happen is we will coordinate their weekly schedule, their season schedule, based on a calendar. So what we do is we have a calendar set up for the team, for the athlete, that onboards all their games or tournaments, whatever it may be. So everything is sent to them on a weekly basis that's based around their big events. It also creates a flag for that athlete to know that after their big events, they have to give feedback as to how they're playing, how they're feeling, and as well, feedback that will help evolve what comes next for them in terms of what they may need. So with all of this, we also want to make sure that we create something that's flexible, something they could use on a plane, a train, a bus, something they could use on their phone, tablet, PC, whatever it may be. And it's got to be something that can also be confidential. So everything that our athletes do is 100% confidential. The coaches, training staff, no one knows exactly what their specific feedback back is. And we also really want to make sure that in staying with the data, that we have good, rich data, and it's a research tool that can be used to help teams with their athletes individually, but help their coaching staff, their training staff, their program staff as a whole get a better idea of what's going on in that locker room without breaching confidentiality. So really, our program here, what do? We assess, we analyze, and then we put into action plans to help athletes. And each one of these little plans is, again, taken from the 10 plus years that Peter and I have been doing private practice, private consulting, and pulling together all the little homework assignments we created, homework assignments we've evolved over time that we would normally give face-to-face, now we're giving online. And it allows athletes to, again, go through this on their own time, in a confidential way. And in turn, what we're seeing now is there are program leaders, coaches, that in their group sessions, when they're talking about team bonding or what's coming up in the week ahead, now have so many of their athletes using it and feeling comfortable using it that they're actually sharing what one of their workouts of the week is for them this week. And some of them really get into it. Some of them laugh and say, oh my God, I did that last week. It made me think about things. And we also have some assignments that force the athlete to have to intermingle with their coaching staff and with some of their teammates. So again, like, how does it work? I'll explain to you the 5 different areas that we look at. Each week, athlete has something to do that takes a few minutes to get done. I often tell people you can finish your assignment faster than you can finish your Starbucks. And with that, over time, we also ask them how they perform. So we have something called a post-competition debrief where they tell us how the game went. And then from there, we're reassessing again and again and again. So for a lot of ways, we explain to people that our program is live because it's constantly flowing with what's going on in that person's season or their life. So some of the things that we have embedded into our program is we have a little bit of gamification that's in there. We have a video library of all different types of things that fall into certain categories that are based on the pillars that each athlete will address at some point in time in their season. We have things where we do team data. Team data is we, again, not breaching the confidentiality element of things. We're able to give coaches, program directors, an overview of what's going on in the locker room based on percentage breakdown of certain performance characteristics, the pillar characteristics, and then across a performance in the pillar characteristics, if that makes sense. So for all of you non-number people, I don't want to bore you with too much data, blah, blah, blah. But it's something that we can provide coaches and, again, team directors with information and updates weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, whatever they may need. So if we're making our big pitch to a team, to a program, and they might say, well, why should we use this? Well, first and foremost, when we're talking to athletes, the number one thing they want to know is this confidential, or is that guy in that room back there going to know everything I'm thinking? Second, with analytics being what they are, analytics is taking over sports in so many different ways. The fact that we can give data that people can see, assess, and figure out how to use has been a big tool for us to share. We can customize reports, we can customize the feedback, we can customize so many of the different things that athletes need. That's been a big tool for us as well. But we're also able to take data from other things that they might be doing. So it could be their dryland training, the rehabilitation training, off-season training, and we can melt it together with the data that we're attaining and gathering as well, and hopefully find some crosshatches to help athletes should they have any ups and downs or big issues going on with their season. This is my partner, Peter. He's the smart, intelligent, good-looking one in our group. Peter's doing a lot of private work back in Toronto, where he works with a huge athletic medical practice called Athletes Care. But oddly enough, Peter is actually teaching at the university that the two of us played hockey at. And we laugh at that every single day, just so you know. The idea that he's teaching, period, makes me laugh. But at the same time, teaching at our old school is kind of special to us both. So Peter and I, again, have known each other for about 20 some odd years. It's scary to say. And with our experience as athletes, and now as teachers, and as people working with athletes one-on-one, coaches one-on-one, we're trying to melt together all the things that coaches and program directors need to work with these athletes. One of the things that we've had to do over the past, say, 5 to 6 months is really educate program directors, coaches, on what they are going to be working with athletes as they walk into their door. So I'll say it this way. There's still a lot of old school coaches out there in sport. And the reason for that, we could be here all day talking about why that is. But a lot of them are truly unaware of what could walk into their door. And that's to say that 20% of any team you put together from the ages of, I'd say, 14 and above, could be walking in with some sort of mental condition already in place. I tell coaches of youth sports, whether it's soccer, baseball, hockey, doesn't matter, 25% of your team will be diagnosed at some point in their life with some form of ADD, ADHD, a combination of the two, or some other learning disability. Are you aware of that? And when they hear that, they just go, because so many of them are really comfortable coaching or teaching one way. So it could be, I just draw on the whiteboard, let's go do it. That's what I do. Or I like to act it out, and I like to do the kinesthetic way of teaching. Or I just like to be verbal. Tell them once, make them go do it, and if they don't, run them into the ground, whatever it may be. So when you tell this to coaches and you let them know about what they're getting into their locker room, it really now puts some pressure on them to truly be able to incorporate other teaching mechanisms into their game, or they're not going to be there much longer. It's also important to be able to know that if you get these coaches that are really truly passionate about what they do, whether it's working with youth or they're doing it professionally, but they really are passionate about what they do and getting the most out of their athlete, helping their team succeed, it's important that they too are equipped with the tools that they need to be that coach who, you know, all their athletes say, I love that person. I'd do anything for that person. I'd climb through broken glass, or I'd go through a concrete wall for that person because of what they've done for me and our team. Those people who are those kind of coaches have not only tapped into their skill sets as athletes, but their mental and emotional as well. Do you know how to do that? And this is what we're trying to help educate coaches and program people on, the importance of being aware of the mental aspects of life as well as sport. So we know that there's a need. You all know there's a need. That's why you're studying what you're studying, or you're a part of a sports psychology program like what Ron has helped form for you guys. But it's also important that a lot of athletes also realize that the mental side is something they need to focus on. There's a million different quotes out there. We have a couple of really great people in our world. We're just starting to formulate our headset sports team, where we're getting people who are consultants, people who are working with athletes and teams, or even just selling our product and getting it out there to different programs, who are now embracing that mental side of the game as both a coach and as an athlete. And what do I mean by that? We have a lot of athletes that show up that want to get involved. And as they get going with our program, and whether it be selling or consulting, the light bulb goes off and they look and go, oh my God, I find myself using some of the same slogans that my coach used to use with me. I'm realizing who I was in that locker room. I realized that I'm the one that was maybe joking in the corner when I should have been focusing more. And I'm the one who had a hard time regulating my emotions. So it's been kind of interesting to see that those who have become part of our program are now actually using the program in some way, shape, or form. I often get asked, well, who is this program for? This program is basically made for kids who are 14, I'd say the age of 14 onward. We are now in a special, unique situation where our program essentially was used to help young athletes become better and help coaches evolve into college sports. It's gone into professional sports, but that last little circle is something that has come to fruition for us now as well, where there's a couple of major league professional institutions that have come to us and said, we would like to use your program for the athletes we have that are now leaving the sport. And we're worried about them. We're worried if they have what it takes to succeed off the field. We know that not many of them finish school. We know that not many of them have the connections to simply jump into a sales job or family business or whatever it may be. And we know that some of our athletes didn't make a lot of money, and they're going to have to find some sort of vocation for the rest of their life. Some of them are worried the thought of going back to school is not even an option for them because they might be married, might have kids, who knows what the situation is. So now we're really worried about our professional reputation of our athletes leaving our league, leaving our team, our whatever it may be. And now they become those living in squalor. And there's a couple of really, really famous stories that are out there of athletes who've not just lost money and become bankrupt, but there's some really horrible stories out there of exceptionally talented athletes who are homeless, who are living on the streets. And I throw one story to you. If you ever get a chance, any of you, to look up a story of a hockey player by the name of Joe Murphy, it'll blow your mind. It will blow your mind. And Joe Murphy is a superstar, was a superstar as an American in the National Hockey League, set all different types of records. I don't want to tell you more than that, but there's a couple of documentaries that have been made over the last couple of years. And when we talk about the transition out of sport, if any of you have passion for doing transitional work, you need to know the Joe Murphy story. Youth sports, a lot of money being spent on youth sports. Don't know if any of you guys watch a pretty cool show on TV. It's on HBO with Brian Gumbel called Real Sport. Brian Gumbel did a special about a year ago where he talks about the billions and billions of dollars that are involved with youth sports at the rec level, the competitive level, the travel level, elite level. There's a lot of money being spent. And what families are realizing right now is that they're losing focus. You know, they're all caught up on going D1 and going pro. Well, you all know the stats of what it means to go pro. If you don't, you should know. But I'm sure you all do know. But what you don't know is that there are so many families out there that are pursuing the dream that they've lost focus and they've lost touch with reality. They're not looking at those stats. And that's where it becomes important to help educate parents and coaches at the youth level of expectancy. You know, what are these people expecting out of this season and expecting out of me as a coach? What are they expecting out of their kid? I'll tell you a horrible story.
Hey, Jay.
Yeah.
Before you tell us your horrible story, I want us to look at the clock.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll invite you back if you've got more stories, but I do want to make sure you mentioned maybe an opportunity for some students that are interested.
Yes. Yes.
And I want to encourage students at this point now to put some questions into the chat. So if you want to talk about opportunities and then maybe answer questions for the next 10 minutes or so.
Yeah. What I'd love to do is I'll put up a slide here with our contact information.
Perfect.
And see right here. If any of you are interested in learning more about what we do at Headset Sports, please shoot me an email. If any of you are looking for internship opportunities, shoot me an email. If any of you are looking for research opportunities where you're looking at performance or you're looking at elements of how the mental game can affect an athlete over time, give me a call, send me an email. We have a lot of different opportunities for people right now in those different areas. And it's been exciting to bring on more students. So please shoot me an email at j@headsetsports.com. I'd love to get on a call with you and share more about what we're doing, what we have planned in the future, as well as the opportunities that we have for you guys right now.
Fantastic. So we're getting lots of thank yous. I know in our busy schedules, lots of our students are jumping off to go they took an hour out of their practicum or between classes. And so they are jumping off those calls. Let's see. So, Jay, what tip would you give? You know, you were a student graduating way back when. What tips would you give our students for sort of that first step after they graduate, whether it be connecting with coaches or teams? You know, my philosophy is always, the advice I give to people is, you know, try to get connected, reach out to people, offer them something for free, and then do great work and impress. And once you impress people, then they're going to want to keep you around. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, all those points are brilliant. I think the only thing that I would throw into that would be flexible. And flexible means, you know, you're going to have to be accommodating to whatever those needs may be of a coach or a program director, but also be flexible of the services that you may want to provide. I know when I first started, I thought about performance, and I want my teams to score more goals or more touchdowns, and that's what I want to be known for, as the performance guy. And that's not always what it is. You know, performance could be something completely different. It could be the person who helps get the rah sis boom ba going in the locker room. The performance person could be someone who helps the coaching staff with subtle issues of coaching. Be open to dealing with issues with communication. A lot of times we have scenarios that will pop up where you got an excellent coach who's got excellent skills and strategy, but that person could be an absolute nightmare when it comes to talking to kids or talking to parents. And being able to be flexible to do different things within a team is huge. Because once you show flexibility, you're showing diversity of your talents. When you have a diverse talent pool that you're sharing with teams, that's when teams will come back and say, we need Dr. Ron, because without him, this thing blows up.
Great, thank you. I do want to point out to our students on the call that you mentioned 5 different pillars, but the 2 big intervention points are the individual who got on the bus that you were talking about to talk to you after a tragedy, and the person who sits down and does performance work. And often those 2 people can be separate folks. And there are a lot of folks in our business. Dr. Glasgow, who was on the call, and myself focus much more on the clinical side, supporting an athlete's mental health, freeing them up from their crises so that they can go compete at their best. And then on the flip side are a number of my friends that do performance only, and they actually don't want you to talk about being vulnerable or mental health problems or family problems. They want to put you in a little cocoon that's, you know, pure performance. And so there's, you know, both of those avenues. And one of the things that I think we all appreciate about your program is it encapsulates all of that. So it's both the mental health and the self-esteem of the athlete and the performance. And I know those 2 folks don't often step into the same arena. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's a great point that you bring up. And I think that there's a real strong message hidden in those words that you bring up that everyone should know. And that's, you can control what you want to do. I'll say it again, you can control what you want to do, and in terms of how you want to take sports psychology and go to the next level. But you cannot control what shows up in front of you. So you may be thinking, I want a career that is one of all about performance and helping that athlete score the winning touchdown. But when that athlete says to you, I want to talk to you about some of the things that I'm doing that are not healthy, are you prepared for that? And do you know your boundaries with that? So it's a great point that you bring up, Ron, that there's 2 sides to this, and you need to be aware of which side you're on and also where your skill sets lie.
So the other thing, last thing maybe I want to bring up is two things that you talked about. One is if we're looking for a skill set for someone who's ready for just about anything, is number one, you have to be ready for the crisis. Because you don't know when that crisis, as you said, is going to walk in the door or pick up the phone and call you. And so being someone who is good in a crisis, who can keep their calm, keep people safe, is one of those skill sets that is imperative in this. And then the other one, which is really close to my heart, is the assessment component. And I'm not sure enough folks in this, coaching, athlete support, or even psychology side do enough data collection and assessing. So again, congratulations, I think, for making sure that you're using data to drive the support for your athletes. I think that's really special.
Thank you. Thank you.